Okay, lesson 2 is on reflections. In lesson 1, we talked about translations, which is a transformation. Lesson 2 is going to be on reflections, which is another type of transformation. So let's take a look at some vocabulary. Okay. A reflection is a mirror image of the original figure. So you have a pre-image, just like you had in a translation, but it's going to be a mirror image, which means it's a flip. Okay. In this case, with a translation, the shape stayed the same, the size stayed the same, and so did the orientation. But in a reflection, the shape stays the same, the size stays the same, but the orientation is different. It's going to flip. Okay, so that's what a reflection is, and most of you know what a reflection is. When we have a reflection, we always have a line of reflection, and a line of reflection is what we are reflecting it over. Okay, so let's take a look at a couple of reflections here. There's two ways in this lesson that we're going to do some reflections. We're going to talk about reflections over the x-axis and reflections over the y-axis. So if we take a look, reflections over the y-axis are, let's start with this one, reflections over the y-axis. Here's our y-axis right here. So when they tell us that they want us to reflect over the y, this is going to be our reflection line. So you can see we start with our original, okay, and we're going to flip it or reflect it across the y-axis right here. That becomes our reflection line. And if you notice, and when we did that investigation, when you did the folding of the paper, we know that this point right here, since it is 2 points or 2 units away from the y-axis, your reflection has to be 2 units away from the y-axis. This point right here is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, which means this point has to be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? If they ask us to do a reflection of the x-axis, here is our x-axis right here. So we're going to flip it across the x-axis, and that becomes our reflection line. And again, it's the same concept. This point right here is 1 unit from the line, which means this point has to be 1 unit from the line. Same thing here, and same thing with its reflection point. This point right here is 4 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, which means this point down here has to be 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now they talk about the symbols right here. This just tells you, again, if you didn't have a coordinate graph, how you could tell. When you flip across the x-axis, what that does, it changes your y values. So if you look right here, see how that's a positive 4? When you reflect it, look down here. Your y changes to a negative 4. Your y's are going to be opposites of each other. Your x's will stay the same, but your y's will be opposite. And then it's just the opposite for reflecting over the y-axis. Your y's will stay the same. Okay, see how we're staying on the same y coordinates? But when you flip it, your x's will be opposite. Okay? So let's take a look here. It says triangle ABC has vertices A, B, and C. Okay, so here's your original figure right here. Triangle ABC. Okay, it says to reflect the image over the x-axis. So right here is your x-axis. So we're going to flip this figure down over the y-axis. And again, all you have to do, this is more of a visual thing, all you have to do is count. Point C is 1 unit away from the line, which means C prime has to be 1 unit away from the line. Same thing with B. Point B is 1, 2, 3 units away from the line, which means B prime has to be 1, 2, 3 units away from the line. Okay? Let's look at example 2. Here they're asking us to reflect across the y-axis. Okay? So here's quadrilateral KLMN, okay, right here. Here is your pre-image or your original image, and they want us to reflect it across the y-axis. So when you do that, you're flipping it across the y. And again, your points have to stay symmetrical. This point K is 2 units from the line y, which means K prime has to be 2 units from the reflection line. Same thing with each point. And all you have to do is count. Like point M is 1, 2, 3, 4, which means M prime needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4 points away. Okay? So right now, pause the video and I want you to try your got it problem. Alright, so the first thing that you needed to do is you needed to plot triangle PQR, and here are the original vertices, P, Q, and R. So when we graph this, okay, here's what your original image should look like right here. Okay, so what we're going to do, they're asking us to reflect it over the y-axis. So here's your y-axis right here. So we're going to flip this over to this side. So if point P is 1 unit away from the line, that means that P prime is going to be 1 unit away from the line. Point Q is 1, 2, 3, which means Q prime is going to be 1, 2, 3. And R, the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and there's your reflection image across the y-axis. Okay, then they wanted you just to rewrite the new image's coordinates down there. Okay. Now here's example 3. Now we're getting into actual images like pictures. Okay, and it's the same thing as what we've been doing. Okay, they want you to find the coordinates of A prime and B prime, then sketch the figure and its image onto the coordinate plane. This is where you get to be a little bit artistic. Okay, so here's your first image. Okay, it's half of a frog. You've got point A and point B here. They wanted you to reflect point A and point B first. So here's A prime and here's B prime. And then you can just kind of sketch the other half of the frog in there. Okay? We're going to do some activities tomorrow using the mirrors that will make this activity a little bit easier when you're doing curves and things like that. So pause the video right now, and I want you to try the got it problem. Okay, and that will be our last problem. Okay, so it says the figure at the right is reflected over the x-axis. Again, you have to know your axes. Here's your x-axis. So this is our reflection line. And they want, it says, find the coordinates of point A prime and point B prime. Then sketch the image onto the coordinate plane. So the first thing you have to do is you have to find where point A and point B will be in their reflections. So let's take a look. 1, 2, so point A is going to be 2 units down. Point B, 1, 2, 2 units down. Okay? Then you can go ahead and you can trace in the rest of the image. It doesn't have to be perfect. And again, a lot of times when you're doing sketches like this, mirrors help, and we will use those tomorrow in our activity. Okay, but here are your 2 new points. A prime is -2, -2. B prime is 2, -2. So this is it for reflections. Again, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because you've had it before. What I want for you to do for tomorrow is to have your guided practice filled out, and we'll go over that at the beginning of the class, and then we'll move forward from there. Okay?